practice like a Jedi, man. You're shooting like Hadouken, you know, like the anime guys. Like, what is that?
Don't
Goku?
even start talking about Star Wars, bro. Star Wars is a nonfiction saga of movies, collection of movies, man.
Yeah,
You got
no,
you
right?
got people quite literally. Let's get esoteric real
Let's
quick.
get esoteric.
We have Star Wars, which is literally a war amongst the cosmos, amongst the stars. Fucking
With the
hence Star
light
Wars.
fighting against the
With the
dark
light
side.
and the dark energy, the fucking force, the ether, tapping into it like crazy shit. But then you talk about Star Wars, and you got fucking the Death Star, which is a planet fucking size, just energy fucking spaceship type thing ready to explode planets. And then you read some ancient tablets and text, and you realize that there was quite literally space wars going on at the beginning of mankind on
Check
Earth.
out the Sumerian Tablets is what he's referencing.
Tap into the Sumerian tablets.
The Enuma Elish, the Epic of Gilgamesh, among others. The story of creation of man, the Book of Enoch. That one's a crazy one. I'm still reading that one right now.
Enoch discusses. Enoch literally was the first man to ascend mind, body, spirit complex before Jesus, but it talks about in Enoch.
Sorry to blow your mind real quick.
Yeah, so sorry to break your reality real quick. Sorry about that, but it talks about how he was getting picked up by these Anunnaki gods, and they were bringing them out into space and spacecraft. And he described the Earth as round, green, and blue. So like any of you flat earthers, like you're capping. Enoch said it thousands of years ago. He's the only dude been to space. Like you haven't been to space, so don't tell me it's not round. I haven't been either, but Enoch said so. So I'm gonna go on his accord of what the Earth shaped like. But you also have the Igigi, right, who were slaves on Mars, and they found out that Enki and Enlil and Anu, all those high Anunnaki gods controlling the world down here, thousands, Mesopotamia, Sumer, all that jazz, Egypt. They're the ones controlling the Igigi. Came in spacecrafts to Earth to quite literally fight Anu, Enki, and Enlil to free them from the slavery because they weren't slaves. And that brings us in.
That brings us into that's some esoteric. Now,
you want me to get into it?
Wait. Let me pull.
I'll get into that.
You're gonna get into it right after. So he's mentioning Enlil, Enki, Anu, right? Those are Sumerian gods. Those are the Sumerian gods, right? Or not Sumerian, but they're mentioned in the Sumerian tablets. Those same gods are depicted among various cultures across the planet. You could see them in hieroglyphs. You could see them in ancient cuneiform writing. Those gods are everywhere. And also, fun fact, before we break realities out here, we have the Bible, right? Every time it says God in the Bible, it was mistranslated. It should say gods. The Bible is a collection of stories. Many of those were brought from the Sumerian tablets, talking about the misadventures of Enlil, Enki, Anu, all those other gods or Anunnaki, right? So when they say God as a singular, it means plural. Go ahead, go in.
All right, so let me break your reality real quick on the 5D podcast. We're ascending with this knowledge, quite literally. But so we get back to it. Before I even go into this, if you don't believe me, look up Billy Carson, watch his videos. He explains it way better than I can, but I'm just about to paraphrase what he's saying. And if you don't believe him, he will debate literally any of you fucks and crush your reality. So that's that. But so basically, we have Enki, Enlil, and Anu. Enki and Enlil, the sons of Anu, the head Anunnaki god, right? You have Enlil, who's the younger half brother of Enki. But so Anu gave power to Enlil because Enlil was more divine than Enki, rather, because his bloodline was more divine because his mother was, right? So his mother was more higher up in the bloodline. So Enlil, the younger half brother of Enki, got awarded all the military, all that stuff. He was in charge of the empire, right, at the time. So you got the Igigi who are slaves of these people, but they're not slaves. They're just Anunnaki. They're just like us, pretty much. And all these gods are just human-like people like us, of higher consciousness, come down and into our bodies. They have special higher consciousness powers than we had at the time, because
they were much more spiritually advanced, not as much technologically advanced, but spiritually advanced, consciously,
but way more technologically advanced too, because they had spacecrafts, like whatever, right? So you have the Ajiji who are pissed because they're being worked as slaves on Mars, and Lil Enki and Anu are just working them to death for no reason, and they're not even slaves, man. It's like America back 400 years ago. Like, these people were literally used as slaves, and it's like they're no different from you or me, man. But like, essentially, so they fly over here, right? They come from heaven, the Anunnaki, those who fell from heaven to earth, right? That's quite literally what Anunnaki means. So any alien is Anunnaki. We could essentially be Anunnaki to someone if we came onto another planet, right? But the story goes, the Gigi come here from Mars, and Enki and Lil realize, like, we don't have enough manpower to fight the Gigi. So what do? They are in the Mesopotamia, or Sumer rather, and they decide we need more manpower. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna take the existing hominids on Earth and put our DNA, mix our DNA with theirs, and create a race of human beings like us to fight our battles, to work for us, to give us food, to do all this shit, right? So essentially, they mix their DNA with the first hominid, right? And they create a human like us, but it's almost like Billy Carson describes as taking a tiger and a lion and mixing it, right? And you get a liger, but because that's of two separate DNA and they don't mix, the liger cannot reproduce another liger, right? Because it's too genetic. Genetics just doesn't mix, right? So what they did, they took Enki's DNA, I believe, or Enlil, Enki, I believe. Let me fact check myself real quick. Take 2 seconds.
Want me to do it?
No, I gotta.
So while we're discussing it, while you're checking, so these stories, like I said before, come from the Sumerian Tablets, and they're various different stories of creation on Earth, right? And this is leading up to the story of the Garden of Eden, right? And as depicted in the Sumerian Tablets, am I right in saying that, John? The Garden of Eden was what was?
Yeah. So also, yeah, but let me get in. Sorry.
Go.
I just have so much on my. Sorry, but so essentially, Enlil was called the Lord of Eden, right? And if you look into the Bible, the God in the Old Testament rather is Yahweh. So to break your reality real quick again, Enlil is Yahweh. So Yahweh is the one saying, fucking kill all these people. Anyone who doesn't follow me is evil. Like, they should all die. Like, these Anunnaki hated us.
The lake of fire.
They hated us.
He
like
created the lake of fire.
They wanted to just kill us off. They wanted to use us as slaves. Like, we meant nothing to them, at least to Enlil, right? To Yahweh. So they take Enlil's DNA, they mix it with the Egyptian god Isis, right? Isis carries the first human baby for 10 months to term and produces Adamu, right? She gives birth to Adamu, baby boy Adamu, right? Adamu relates to Adam of the Old Testament, of the book of Genesis, Adam and Eve, right? So they have that baby, and Adamu quite literally means the first man, or the perfect man, right? So we have the Garden of Eden, we have Lord Eden, and Lil giving his DNA, having sex with Isis, creating Adamu, right? And then that's how they got the Garden of Eden, right? And that's how they started. They realized it worked, and then Adamu or Adam can start reproducing with other people, and they just started they made their army of humans, right? They started, because this is so much information, but so the Garden of Eden was quite literally an outside laboratory where they just like kept procreating to make us humans to use as their slaves. Because the Anunnaki, they're highly conscious, like they didn't want to do anything. They just wanted to sit on their ass all day and have us bring them food, worship us, all this shit. And they mixed into our DNA. They put telomere caps on our DNA, which quite literally, when you have a telomere cap on your DNA, it literally makes there's this thing called the worship gene. So what they did is they made us worship it. What it does is, when you put the telomere cap on the DNA, it makes you look outward of yourself for exterior.
It makes you look to an external God, and it makes you not look internally for God.
But when you take this off, you look internally, because we are God, essentially. But then it goes even further. So you have Adam, you then eventually get Eve comes into the situation, right? And then, so you're in the Garden of Eden, and we all know the story of the serpent all these people were said to be serpents, right? Reptilian, whatever you want to call it. So then you have Enki, who's doesn't really fuck with his younger brother because Enlil's evil, right? If you read the Bible, Yahweh wasn't a good God, nothing to look up to. But Enki comes in with the apple, the serpent comes into the garden, and he gives them the apple, meaning knowledge, and he gives them the knowledge that as humans, we're mixed with that Anunnaki DNA, but we're essentially mixed with the first existing hominids on Earth, and we're the better, more pure, divine spirit, mind, body, spirit complex than essentially the Anunnaki that came here from different planets, right? So Enki gives us that knowledge, that consciousness. Eating that apple, we gain consciousness, we gain that knowledge that
we gain wisdom of self, right? And that
self, and then that's a whole nother thing. And Lil gets pissed at Enki for giving us this knowledge, and then that's a whole nother war. And then wars on Earth. There's evidence of nuclear bombs on Earth thousands of years ago. Fucking the glass underneath the sand and
so,
Egypt and the
all right. That let's get into the cataclysm. Right?
Cataclysms with Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson. You dropped it on the TikTok.
Yes.
They talk about there was comets hitting on the Earth 12,800 years ago to 11,000 years ago. And those comets could essentially be these nuclear bombs that were being set off by Enlil and Enki.
Because you look at, I forget the actual location, but the balls of glass in the sand.
I'm pretty sure it's in like Egypt, bro.
It might be in Egypt. From the balls of glass from the explosions, right? You need, how hot does glass? I think it needs to get 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit for sand to turn to glass, and that it wouldn't get that hot from an asteroid. There would have to be some sort of nuclear.
An asteroid could do it, but it could also be, an asteroid could do it because, bro, think about it. It's coming from space. It's going like 70,000 miles per hour. It's literally a ball of fire hitting the Earth.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess you're right because a half mile asteroid hitting the Earth.
It's actually more stronger because